There are crimes so horrific, so senseless, and so shrouded in unanswered questions that they refuse to fade from memory. One such event took place on a cold February morning in 1990, an event so brutal that even decades later, it still haunts the minds of those who learned of it. This is the story of the Las Cruces bowling alley massacre, an unsolved tragedy that cost innocent lives and left a community grappling with a nightmare that has never fully ended. It was early on the morning of February 10, 1990, at Las Cruces Bowl in New Mexico, a modest, local bowling alley that should have been opening its doors for a normal Saturday. Instead, within the walls of that quiet business, something incomprehensibly dark was about to unfold. Inside the alley's office, the manager, 34-year-old Stephanie Senek, was preparing for the day. With her was her 12-year-old daughter, Militia Rapace, and Militia's 13-year-old friend, Amy Hauser. The three of them planning to run the daycare at the bowling alley once business began. In the kitchen, 33-year-old Ida Holgan worked quietly, unaware that this morning would become the darkest chapter in the town's history. Then, without warning, it happened. Two armed men entered the building through an unlocked door. One pulled a small .22 caliber pistol, herding Ida into the office where Stephanie and the two girls were already gathered. In a matter of minutes, the ordinary morning transformed into a horrifying nightmare. The intruders rounded them all up, forced them to lie on the floor, and began what would become an unfathomable act of violence. They demanded access to the safe, and after grabbing what was estimated to be only a few $1,000s, they made their worst choice at that moment. 26-year-old Steve Tarrant, a mechanic at the bowling alley, walked through the unlocked front door, bringing with him his two young daughters, Valerie, just 2 years old, and Paula, only 6. Steve had been unable to find a babysitter that morning, so like so many devoted parents before him, he brought his children along. What he stepped into would forever change the lives of everyone involved. Those final moments before violence erupted must have seemed ordinary. A man arriving for work, small voices in the background, a room almost peaceful in its routine, then gunfire. Over 20 shots rang out in the cramped office, each one echoing with terror, each one leaving a permanent scar. When the horror ended, 7 people had been shot execution style. 4 of them died in that room, including Steve and both of his daughters, and young Amy Hauser. The smallest victim, Valerie, clung to life long enough to be rushed to a hospital, but she died shortly after arrival. Miraculously, 3 survived. Militia, despite being shot 5 times, found the strength to crawl to the phone and dial 911, somehow summoning help that would never come in time to save the others. Her mother Stephanie and Ida Holgan also survived, though Stephanie would later succumb to her injuries. Nearly a decade afterward, as if the shooting itself wasn't chilling enough, the killers then set fire to the office, igniting papers in a desperate attempt to destroy the evidence of their brutal crime, before slipping back into the morning shadows, leaving unanswered questions in their wake. What motive could explain such depravity? Was it simply a robbery gone wrong, or was something more sinister at play? The truth remains as murky today as it was the day the shots were fired. Investigators found the stolen amount to be surprisingly small, far too little to justify the tidal wave of bloodshed. In the aftermath, law enforcement responded with massive searches, roadblocks, and even aerial reconnaissance, but despite these efforts, no arrests were ever made. The perpetrators vanished without a trace, leaving behind only cold case files and the heartbreak of the families whose lives were forever altered. Decades have passed, anniversary after anniversary. The communities of Las Cruces and beyond remember the victims, and law enforcement still holds out hope that someone, somewhere, knows something today. A reward of $25. 0 stands for any information that leads to the identification of those responsible. It's a haunting reminder that even when decades roll by, some mysteries refuse to fade into history. They linger in old crime scene reports, in faded photographs, in unanswered phone calls, and in the echoes of children's laughter that was abruptly silenced. If you found yourself captivated or even chilled by this story, Consider sharing this video to keep the memory alive and help spread awareness of this cold case. And if you're drawn to the darker corners of history and unanswered mysteries, make sure you hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the unknown, because some shadows never truly leave, and some stories deserve to be told again and again.